Hey movie fans, you're watching MovieStyle, only here on Reels. I'm Michael O'Connor. Prior to wartime, a lot of women spent most of their time here in the kitchen. But with the war, women had new roles outside the home. Such an example was set by movie star Joan Crawford in the iconic and fashion-forward Mildred Pierce.
Tell you he didn't do it. I know he didn't.
Do you? The murder was committed with this. You know who it belongs to?
No, but he didn't. He couldn't. He's too gentle and kind.
Okay, he's kind and gentle. He's wonderful. But if he's so wonderful, Mrs. Barrigan, why did you divorce him?
When the movie Mildred Pierce debuted in 1945, near the end of World War II, Hollywood actress Joan Crawford was already a household name.
She started out as a flapper during the Roaring '20s. She then became kind of a working girl during the Depression, a shop girl they used to call them. And then she became, a sort of a glamour figure in the late 30s. And by the 40s, no longer a spring chicken, she became a tough dame.
I'm not running. Do you understand that?
She was known for having very broad shoulders, and she wore then suits that had shoulder pads on them that made them even broader. She had very heavy eyebrows, very distinctive kind of outlined lips, and it became known as the Crawford lip. So she had a look, she had a lot of followers, and she then helped to kind of solidify what was appropriate for the civilian population to wear in their everyday work life.
But it was her gritty performance in Mildred Pierce that made her a bona fide fashion icon. The movie was a critical and popular success, and Crawford took home the Academy Award for Best Actress.
You promised not to tell. You promised. You said you'd help me.
Peter, don't say anything.
Too late, Mrs. Barrigan. That's all we needed.
I think Mildred Pierce would have been empowering, to use a modern day word, for a lot of women who were faced with some of the same dilemmas that Mildred faced in that film. And there's no tougher dame than Mildred Pierce, who for reasons beyond her control has to be not only the breadwinner, but the person who runs her family, feeds her family, takes care of her daughter without benefit of husband, and puts food on the table.
Got a drink handy?
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, Jean, crack open the safe and get out some of that good bourbon. You never used to drink during the day.
Never used to drink at all. It's just a little habit I picked up from men.
I believe Joan Crawford became a fashion icon because she was a very strong woman at a time where women had to be strong. The burden of responsibility for keeping the country functioning, both with children but also industry, literally fell onto the shoulder pads of women in the United States because the men were off in Europe fighting the war, fighting the Nazis. So Joan Crawford represented this, and a lot of women could identify with her on screen.
As the character of Mildred Pierce evolves in the film, so does her on-screen movie style.
You see her outfits in the early part of her working career. They look like waitress uniforms, little puff sleeves, little ruffled collar, very diminutive. But by the end of the film, where she's a very successful businesswoman, she is wearing very expensive clothes with very masculine details. Crawford's look that she maintains at the very beginning of the film, when she's about to commit suicide, she's a successful businesswoman, but having a lot of trouble with her family, especially her daughter. She wears a turban. That is ubiquitous war years 1940s, except hers is trimmed with mink, so it's a really luxurious version. Also, it matches the mink coat with the broad shoulders that she's wearing. Everything is beautifully coordinated. That's something that became very fashionable, 40 years later in the 1980s that we see in Dynasty. That became a very standard look that was set by Milo Anderson, who was the designer for Mildred Pierce.
Up next, we've got the contemporary movies that captured World War II style, and it's all coming up right after this.